Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
Welcome, everyone, to the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. I'm glad you've joined me today. Make sure that you follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, visit the P.A.S. Report website, pasreport.com, and share this episode with your family and friends. I got a great guest. I got a New York Times best-selling author. I have the President of Project Sentinel, friend of the show, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, joining me. And he just hosted the special for Newsmax, the 250th birthday anniversary of the United States Army. Lieutenant Colonel, welcome to the program. And how was it hosting that event?
So, first off, it was an honor. Obviously, being an Army guy, being able to host and speak to educate people on the Army on our 250th anniversary was wonderful. I think it was very well done. President Trump and my friend Pete Hegseth were very respectful. Of course, Pete being an Army guy too. It was, I think, meant to show a couple things. First, that we are, as a nation back. We're going to have a very strong hand leading the nation, something that's been lacking. Secondly, it really does demonstrate the fact that the Army pre-existed our republic by a year. 1775. We literally were the necessary tool. I say that with a great deal of respect to my Army compadres. We were the tool necessary to serve divorce papers on the British, on the monarchy, on the king. So we had a good time. Carl, being a Navy SEAL, while not Army, we had a good time. We were able to, I think, do a really good job with including our stories of the Army, of our experience in there. And I appreciate your comment there, Nick. I know other folks have been commenting on our social media that I won't say what other networks, but other networks were boring. My son, Anthony, watched some of the other coverage. He said NBC was whining. It's like, okay. It's like, okay, well, so everybody loved our coverage and we had a good time doing it. So thanks for asking.
It's so important because a lot of people think that the Declaration of Independence gave us our independence, and that's not true. I mean, It wasn't a legally binding document. No. It had to be won through blood, through the Continental Army. So important. But I want to jump to current events because obviously there's a lot breaking out there. You look at the Israeli strikes on Iran, and then Iran retaliating. That it obviously is escalating, and I don't think that's a surprise to you or myself. But are you impressed with the Israeli military and intelligence capabilities of what they're able to do?
Oh, I am. I've said on the network that this campaign, really does bring out the best of what the Israelis can do. I mean, if you look at the 67 war, the 73 war, the raid on Entebbe, these things all were, brilliant, either in defense, just saving their nation, or Entebbe, using some very effective intelligence to go do a raid in Uganda during the days of Idi Amin Dada. And so this is a combination of a lot of things. First, political will. Let's just put that right up front. You're a professor. Let's talk about the political will. The political will to do this, when everybody has said it could not be done for the past 20 years. Remember everybody saying, oh, you'll never get through the Iranian air defenses. There'll be all these other secondary things that'll happen and it'll be bad. Don't do it. And so, they just said, we're going to do it. We don't care. So that's the first factor. Secondly, to their acumen, they've been brilliant in, I'll just say, weaponizing technology. The pager op was a beginning. The use of drones and being able to sneak things in and use technology effectively, kind of this unique use of drones inside of Tehran to go after people. There's some other things we haven't been told about officially yet regarding defeat of deep undergrounds. Some of the information is going to trickle in slowly because some of these facilities they struck The Iranians don't even probably fully understand how they got struck. So we're going to learn a lot more about some of the advanced technology, tools, techniques, and technology they use to defeat these things. And it wasn't all about airborne aircraft striking things. There was some very unique special operations elements doing things as well. And third, and probably most important, is that they're doing this in such a way to actually create conditions for regime change. And I know everybody gets their hair on fire when you say that in Washington. Oh my God, we don't do that. Well, look, if you've got a nation who was formulated in the late '80s around trying to defeat the great Satan, that's us, just saying, and the little Satan, the Iranians, maybe they're not a good neighbor to have around in the international community. Just saying, maybe that's not a good idea. And so the fact that the Israelis open the door for potential regime change is significant. Fine line to walk. We don't want to see a failed state like Libya. That's a bad idea. Syria is on the verge of being failed, so we don't necessarily want to see that. But there is an opportunity, Nick, for those who are in the green movement, whatever you want to call them now, the pro liberation, pro democracy movement within Iran, to take advantage of this moment of destabilization. And I'd like to see him act. And I don't think we should be involved. As Colin Powell once said, you break it, you own it. We don't want to, it's not our deal to break it, but if people want to rise up and go against, like we did, hey, remember 250 years ago, the U.S. Army rose up against our oppressors and threw them out. Just saying.
Well, two things with that. I mean, I think one of the things that the opposition in Iran always lacked is a figurehead, and I don't see one now.
No, unfortunately, that's true.
Hopefully one can emerge from that. But when it comes to Israel, two-part question. First, how important is it that they do everything right and execute and actually have the will to see it through? At the same time, we have to understand that the Iranian military is not like Iraq's military. It's not like the Taliban's military. It's far more capable, and we are seeing that with the hypersonic missiles that they're using. They have over 3,000 ballistic missiles, and so they do have capabilities. So are you, even though Iran is in disarray, are you worried that this is going to get much worse for both nations?
So that's a great question. On the first part of it, I think the Israelis are held to a higher standard than most militaries because there's a great deal of anti-Semitism in the world. Just say it's like a lot of a lot of folks don't like the Israelis, and I don't. I get along with the Israelis fine. I don't have any issues with either Jewish folks here or the Israelis. I don't. It's like they have the right to defend themselves. But they are held to a higher standard. And yeah, they're going to be looked at for how well they do things. The good news is, Nick, and I said this on the air and I was only halfway joking about it. We haven't seen any nuclear weapons go off, have we, yet? And I hope to stay that way because that would be bad. And I think that's the whole idea here, is to prevent that happening. So as long as we understand this is to prevent the production and use of nuclear weapons, if that's your high watermark, everything else is kind of good. It's like, okay, no nukes, no nukes, no nukes. That's good. Regarding the retaliation, the Israelis, I think, maybe underestimated the potential use of hypersonics. And you and I both seen some video of these things coming in. And the truth be told, the Patriot missiles that we have can't defeat them. There's very few things. There's ways to do it that we're developing. I don't want to go into detail for obvious reasons. I think there's going to be some things we can do. Hypersonics have a vulnerability, and I don't want to get into a lot of detail, but there's a way of kind of catching them right at the last moment. You got to be very quick. I mean, like microseconds quick to figure it out. But with that said, there's still an opportunity. We haven't put enough technology against it, but I think we'll be able to do it eventually. Right now, we can't. Right now, the Israelis are suffering the consequences of. I think I've been told the Iranians only have a handful of these hypersonic missiles produced by Russia, and so once those are gone, theoretically, the Russians won't give them more. At least I think that's what President Trump's going for. At the time we're talking, Vladimir Putin had called President Trump to wish him a happy birthday and to pledge support helping us with Iran. So I think part of this, I don't know this, but I think part of that pledge is to limit what the Russians give the Iranians replacement technology. So that's
And let's be honest, if Russia wants to keep the engagement in Ukraine going on, they kind of need all the stockpiles that they could get.
Well, I think
really
that's part of the
that.
deal. I think they're doing some horse trading. I think that's what's going on behind the scenes. Absolutely.
Now, one of the concerns, so there's three camps really within Republicans here in the United States. There's one camp that says the United States should not be involved at all. It's not our war. It's none of our business, and we should stay out of it. The second camp is the Lindsey Graham camp that's like, yeah, go all in. Let's take over Iran. Let's nation build. Let's, put in a regime that we want. And then there's the third camp that says we have to be very cautious here. However, if Iran strikes any U.S. interests, that the United States, and this is the camp I'm in, must use overwhelming and decisive force to send a message, not just to Iran, but the rest of the world, that we're not going to tolerate that. Now, as the Iranian Ayatollah gets boxed into a corner, as his days may be numbered, as the Iranian military gets more desperate, one of the things that does concern me is not necessarily our military bases overseas. We know they're going to be targeted. We could defend them. Right. One of the things that concerns me is the Iranian agents, both military and intel agents that are here in the United States that came across our border, particularly in the last administration. You had over 3,000 Iranians come across the border. Right. We estimate a couple hundred are military and intel. But even Iranian agents that have actually been here for years, conducting espionage operations, spying. How concerned are you that we may see attacks on U.S. soil here in the homeland? I'm
very concerned, and I like the way you carved out the three groups. And let me touch upon that before I get to answering the question regarding how much of a threat should we be looking at. So to the pacifists, I said this at a CPAC one time, despite the fact you want to pretend that nobody hates us, people hate us. So ignoring the fact that people hate us ain't going to get us anywhere, especially when you look at how pacifism resulted in us having to go to war anyway in World War II. We got attacked. It's like, okay, do you want to just sit back and pretend nothing bad's going to happen? That's not the answer. I'm not going the other way. I don't think we should be the ones leading the way. That is to say that it's not our job to determine what's best for the region. We don't live there, they do, and especially regarding the Iranian people. So that's something that Lindsey Graham should not be telling them. It never works out, Nick. We can't go into a country and tell people what we think they should do. No,
we kind of have a history of the results on that one.
Yeah, we don't like the nation building thing doesn't work. So I'm with you in that last camp. With that said, then what do we do when we're confronted with the fact that we may be struck? And I think this is where the Iranian leadership have a real dilemma. And I think President Trump wanted to put him in this dilemma, by the way. I think there's ample evidence there's sleeper cells here, no doubt. The Iranians have done strikes here before. We know for a fact they had teams out looking for Mike Pompeo. And Mike, I don't know if you saw, Mike went on a big diet to lose weight, so he's a smaller target. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. Sorry, Mike, I'm just joking about that. I appreciate him being healthy.
It's a good joke, though.
It's a good joke, though. So anyway, but they were out to get President Trump as well. I think we're going to come to find that at least one of the assassination attempts, Iran was involved. There was always speculation. I think there's evidence. So I think President Trump has actually shown some pretty good restraint, not going after the Iranians more directly. But with that said, the moment there's a definitive crossing of the line by the Iranians, that is to say, they hit directly United States homeland, or they are directly successful in killing more Americans in one of our bases, then they will suffer some pretty grave consequences. And I think we have some weapons, less than nuclear, that would be very devastating to what they have left regarding military technology. And let me say another thing for the record. That middle group with Lindsey, Liberace, Lindsey Graham. I'm sorry. They're similar, but not the same. Liberace always claimed he wasn't gay. Did you know that?
I did.
Just saying. Not that there's a link there. Don't be thinking there's a link there. Anyway, the issue is Lindsey Graham and company wanted to destroy their ability to produce oil. That's stupid. Nick, you and I both know we do that. We have to rebuild it. It's like, let's disable it. Let's turn it off. Let's not destroy it. Don't bomb it, because I think we want whatever government that comes out of, if there's regime change, we want them to be able to make their own money. So don't be blowing up, you know,
The
petroleum.
cash cow.
Yeah, don't do that. And plus, we're right now trying to declinate the price of oil by increasing the market availability. Don't be taking out a chunk of the market. That just hurts us. So think it through. So that's where I think President Trump is wise to listen to people in our camp. Just saying, over people in the other two camps as we move forward regarding any retaliation against the Iranians should it be necessary.
Now, do you think this conflict can be contained, or do you think it may metastasize and possibly blur into the whole Russia-Ukraine, that something much bigger is brewing, obviously your World War III type scenario?
Any conflict has a potential to become a slippery slope to expansion. I mentioned World War II. I think there were a number of off-ramps that were available had big nations acted earlier, but they failed.
Wars are built on miscalculations.
Built on miscalculations, and someone who was a gambler like Hitler and Tojo, who basically said we're going to run the board, and they did, and people didn't believe they would. I mean, look at remember Peace in Our Time, Chamberlain. Yeah. It's like and then Stalin. I mean, for goodness sake, Stalin never thought that Hitler would do him in. It's like, duh, he's like a dirtbag. He's a liar. I mean, how did you not think? Anyway, I think that, miscalculation is always the biggest threat to good order and stability. So I just don't know. With that said, it's a good sign that Putin called President Trump and said, yeah, we're not going to be putting a bunch of stuff back in there to reinforce them. China is even a little bit muted. China has its own internal problems, which it does not allow it to focus externally. I mean, Xi, I think, is just barely hanging on, to be honest with you. I don't know if he's going to make it through the summer because
I'm hearing a lot of reports about that.
Yeah.
Not sure what's accurate and what's not. It's hard to predict what goes on in the CCP. But that leads me to a final question. Over the year, we just witnessed two major operations. You have Ukraine smuggling drone parts into Russia, taking out 40% of the Russian air fleet.
Yeah.
You have Israel smuggling drone equipment into Iran to take out key senior leadership. We know that the Chinese have bought farmland near military bases throughout the United States. How concerned are you that maybe they're looking to do something similar?
Oh, absolutely. So this dilemma is the same dilemma we faced about 20 years ago looking at loose nukes. Remember, one of the things about our nation is that we handle millions of cargo containers. Now, I love trains. I'm a big rail fan. I love seeing the big old Union Pacific and BNSF trains moving all across the nation with all these mile-long container car shipments. But within that, you have a number of big ports, Los Angeles, New York, up there, Newark, all these places that these things travel through. There's no way we can maintain 100% assurity of everything coming through. We have some ability now to look at nukes because of, radiological issues, but no, Nick, I mean, you could smuggle in multiple hundreds, if not thousands, of these drones into different locations. And I could see, because I'm a red team guy, if I were in charge if I were a bad guy, I know exactly what I'd go after using I'd say, you get 100 containers full of drones, you get them located within about a few locations, key locations within the nation. You could bring at least part of the nation's power grid down rapidly, and we could not put it back up because, I'm just saying, I don't want to give people ideas, but it could be done. It could be done effectively. So this is where the people I advise, I'm saying you need to take a really hard look at our own vulnerabilities because those things that happen to them could happen to us. And by the way, the pager op, I don't know if you knew this. I think you may have heard my comments. We figured that out in the 90s. I'm just saying that we figured out long before the Israelis did it that potential existed. That's about all I can say about it. But
they're the only ones with the cojones to actually put it into place.
That's
make
true.
It operational.
That, my friend, is correct. That is correct. But we figured it out a long time ago. Just saying. So.
Well, I mean, it's crazy times out there, and I always enjoy our conversation.
Me
Wish
too,
I
Nick.
could stay longer, but my son makes stupid decisions, and I need to go to the orthopedic. In any event, we'll definitely have you back on to talk about as the issue unfolds. Thanks so much for joining us, Tony.
Good being here.
You
Thank
too.
you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.